What's up, guys? So today we have quite an interesting video. So right now we're in the Z4 and we're riding on these back roads in what is it, eastern Pennsylvania?
Yeah, eastern Pennsylvania.
Northeast, kind of.
Yep.
So I have my friend Justin here, who's kind of unbiased to the Z4 or the E30. And basically what I want to do is compare the Z4 and the E30 on this particular back road route, because it is pretty, it's a good route. There's a lot of twisty turns, a lot of opportunity to go quick. So basically in this video we're going to mainly just talk about suspension and handling, because these back roads are perfect to talk about suspension and handling. So right off the bat, as I've always noticed, you know, I've driven this car for quite a long time now. On these bumps, it is a little boaty, like there is a little springy. These are, you know, it's stock suspension. I will say it's a little bouncy for my taste, but I think where this car in particular really shines is taking on corners at high speeds. You can really feel how planted it is, and it is a lot lower than the E30 will be. The steering in this car is very direct, you know, kind of moves on a dime. Not only that, but these tires are going to be a lot more grippy than the E30's tires. These are summer tires, running my Apex Arcade wheels, which you guys saw in another video. And now that I remember that, I believe Justin was also in that video.
I was, yeah. We had to haul them in my Jeep.
I think I was blaming the suspension before for how boaty it felt, but I think these roads are just very, holy shit. These roads are just very bouncy, naturally, but the Z4 just holds on. Alright, Justin's hopping in the driver's seat. It's gonna be weird being a passenger, especially these back roads are pretty crazy. Give Justin the benefit of the doubt here, because it is kind of tough to talk and drive. I've just kind of gotten used to it, especially because I wouldn't say like he's the best at stick, but he definitely knows. He knows
right
what he's doing.
I missed shift.
We're gonna do the same back roads that I just drove, and then Justin will either give us his opinions while he's driving or like at the end.
Yeah.
We don't wanna make him multitask. But it's been a while since he's driven my car. He has driven this car before, but I wouldn't say he's seasoned. He probably wouldn't push it as hard as I push it.
No.
But I think it'll be very interesting to see if he has any different feedback, especially when it comes down to when he drives the E30. And excuse like my loud exhaust or lack of muffler.
Feels very, very low to the ground.
Definitely.
And when you're driving, it feels more so than even when you're just a passenger.
Yeah, definitely.
Very low to the ground. The windshield, like the way I'm positioned right now, I feel very small.
Yeah.
I feel like the car feels way tinier than I know it is. But no, it's like the handling is really nice. The steering, I love the steering on it.
Yeah. Which I didn't mention.
When you do something wrong, it is no problem letting you know that you just screwed up.
Yeah.
You know, if you just like I've driven a few manual Jeeps before, and they're very, very, very forgiving. If you are not perfect on the clutch, you don't feel every little bump, and it doesn't lurch as much as this does. But I love the short throw gearbox on it.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if this would go under handling, but the power that this car has, I don't know if I'll feel the same way in the E30.
Right.
I think that's going to be something that's going to be missed. And this car definitely has enough power to, I'm cruising right now, what, third gear?
Third gear, yeah. And
even at the low end, even when I'm at the low end,
right.
And I'm letting it coast, the second I lay on the throttle, you can feel it pick up.
Yeah.
Immediately. The power band is really nice on it.
But the E30 is definitely more of a momentum car, kind of like a Miata. So I think with that car we're gonna have to like fine tune sitting, you know, at a higher RPM to get the torque that we want. But it should be interesting. I think that's another good point that we can base this comparison off of.
Another thing I don't think I'll feel with the E30 is the tightness in the steering. The steering on this is super, super easy and tight. You know, the second you're playing with it, you can feel the car start to move. And on a lot of older cars I've driven, I definitely didn't feel that.
So now is the conclusion for the Z4, and we'll have it just to remind you which car we're talking about. So any like quick conclusions? You were just driving it, so anything that you want to talk about right off the bat?
Yeah, so I think the big selling points on this car, it's got a lot of power, especially for like back road driving, especially what we just did. The handling is very nice on it, because like the steering has a really nice feel. You feel very planted to the ground because you're low. Maybe the aftermarket seats you put in that help you feel really planted.
Yeah.
But you definitely feel like hugged. You don't really feel like you're gonna lose control at any time, even at higher speeds, taking turns quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think this car, those back roads is what this is made for, and I also think that the E30 is kind of made for these back roads too. I think the standout points that I really want to hit on with this car is stuff that the E30 doesn't necessarily have stock. And I do plan on, you know, doing some suspension work to the E30, but I'm kind of going for a stock comparison. But you know how low this car is, it feels really planted, lots of grip, the good low end torque, which I'm not sure that the E30 will really have, and then what else? The steering. I'm very interested to see the steering differences between these two. The steering on this is very direct. It's very predictable. This car, you know, you never feel like you're gonna like swerve off or lose traction. You always feel like you know exactly what you're doing, and you almost feel like it has like no limits. We're in the E30, and we're doing the same exact route that we did with the Z4, and we're gonna compare afterwards. Same idea. I'm gonna drive first, and then Justin's gonna drive. Gonna kind of push the car a little to the limit. At least this car will be pushed to the limit. The Z4, not necessarily. And right off the bat, power, the E30 is definitely slower. I noticed with this car you get really bad low-end torque, so pretty much up to 3 grand you're not getting a lot of torque, but after 3 grand is kind of where this car shines. In terms of handling, it's very significant difference between the Z4 and this car. I mean, you can feel it, you can see it when we're driving, that it's just kind of like leans with the turns. And I guess that's part of the fun factor of this car. I've driven this car for maybe a month or so, maybe 2 months, and I used to have an E30, so I'm pretty familiar with how they drive. And I gotta say that part of the fun of the E30 is that it's more of a playful car. The Z4 is very straightforward, race car, almost very low to the ground, very stiff. This car likes to have fun. Another thing is the limited slip differential. Huge part of this car, especially when you're going around tight turns. You can definitely feel the LSD kind of working its magic, whereas the Z4 has an open differential and definitely hangs onto the corners a lot better.
And it feels like it's losing control a lot more around the bends.
Yeah.
Makes me a bit nervous, more so than the Z4, so you can definitely feel from a passenger standpoint the difference in the handling right off the bat, and even a bit of the power too.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like it throws you back in your seat quite like the Z4.
This is as people describe it, a momentum car. So you definitely get up a lot of momentum or stay at a higher RPM. And once you're up there, this is like when you really feel the power.
You could hear the wheels chirp on that one.
Yeah, the wheels chirp, yeah, a lot easier than you would think on this car, once again because of that limited slip differential. But I think a big factor with this car is still, this car can still put the same smile on your face as with the Z4. I mean, there's no denying that. This car does handle, it handles well because it sways and then it kind of locks into its position. We're at the turnaround point, the same one as the Z4. Justin's gonna have a go in the E30.
It's a bit more forgiving than the Z4 in terms of shifting, and the clutch has a better feel to it. Like the seating position for driving, I find a lot nicer in this. I don't know if it's based off the settings that you have in it, but when I'm in the Z4, I feel like the steering wheel is too close to me, and the pedals are too far away. On this, everything feels a bit more ergonomical for my size. Sitting at a solid 5'7" or 5'8". I definitely did not expect it to have as much power as it has.
Yeah.
It has a bit more power than I expected it to. When you put your foot down, it goes. Not like the Z4, but for a car of this age, definitely has plenty of life left in it. You feel a lot more through the steering wheel, which is actually nice in some ways. And it still remains pretty tight for the most part and pretty sporty.
Yeah.
So you feel a bit more of the road, but at the same time, you're not really losing anything that you'd find in a nicer sports car like the Z4.
These cars are both very direct with the steering. Like you're never surprised when you're steering it. The car will always go where you point it. The higher RPMs, you really feel a little push. And it takes the bumps so much more different than the Z4 would.
Yep,
the Z4 would just stay on top of them.
Yeah.
This car, you kind of float along the bumps in a way. That's the fun part. That's what this car is all about, is taking the corners with momentum and kind of giving it gas where it needs it. That's where this car shines. With the Z4, you can feel the power no matter where you are. With this car, you kind of tweak while you're turning.
Yeah, you can definitely play with how much power you want based on where you have it in the RPM range. So when I had it lower, a little bit of push on the pedal wouldn't really give me as much, but when I have it geared lower and my RPMs are sitting between, 3,000 and 5,000, a little bit, just the tiniest little push on the pedal you can really feel.
See here, we're coming in with speed and then just giving it gas where it needs it, and the car just hangs on there. Coming in with momentum and gassing it out. Like, that's what this car is all about. Yeah, you can argue the 0 to 60 time is not good in this car, but it's just all about how this car hangs in on those corners.
Yeah, with this car, the focus is definitely not the power or the speed. I think it's definitely the handling and the everyday drivability that you can get as well from driving a sportier car.
So the conclusion, in terms of handling, these cars are both very good. I think that we could both agree that the handling was there. The speed, not so much in this car. This car, if I could summarize it, this car is the fun little brother to the Z4. The Z4 is like a serious track car where you get everything that this could be without mods. You can enjoy this car a lot, and there's not a huge price tag on it. The Z4, you're paying for that premium bundle. You're paying to have a car that handles like it's on rails. You pay to have that power. This car, it's a cheap way to get into driving really fun cars. I think that the crossroad between these two is the smiles per mile. So, I mean, as you could see when you were watching the video, taking both cars around that same road, we both enjoyed it thoroughly, and at the end of the day, both brought the same enjoyment.
We should do a smiles per miles rating.
So we'll say the optimal smiles per mile is 10 out of 10. What would you rate this car?
I would rate this car 5 smiles per mile. And I would rate the Z4 probably 7 smiles per mile.
Let's do a value of smiles per mile.
This beats the Z4, you know, hands down every time, all day, every day. If you want to talk about monetary value to smiles per mile, because, you know, you can get essentially, what, 4 or 5 of these for one Z4.
Yeah, I can agree with the smile per mile rating that we had, or Justin had. I think the E30, you get a lot of smiles per mile. It's not up to the same par as the Z4. It's close. It's very close. And at the value that the E30 has, I think that's a huge selling factor for people to get E30s, because not everyone can afford a Z4 as like a weekend car. At the end of the day, both are amazing. Both are very good, and both will make you smile. So it's, at the end of the day, it's about your preference and what you think each car would give you the most benefits. And for me, it's hard to pick, so I just got both.